My son threw his arms around my neck with words that stopped my world. "Dad, is he still here?" I didn't understand who he meant until I saw the men's boots under the bed. The children knew the truth before I did. I'd come home 2 days early from Fort Bragg, thinking I'd surprised my family after 3 weeks of intensive training exercises. The house was quiet at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, kids supposedly in bed, my wife Jennifer probably watching her shows downstairs. But Tommy's question and those size 11 work boots told a different story. My 8-year-old son had been living with the knowledge that strangers were sleeping in his parents' bed. The boots weren't mine. I knew every piece of footwear in my closet: army-issued combat boots, dress shoes for ceremonies, sneakers for weekend runs. These were civilian work boots, expensive ones, with mud from construction sites I'd never visited. Have you ever had your child accidentally reveal a betrayal that would destroy your world? Subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me in the comments how you'd handle discovering the truth through innocent words. My name is Master Sergeant David Thompson, 38 years old, 16 years in the Army, stationed at Fort Bragg with the 82nd Airborne. I'd spent my career jumping out of planes, leading soldiers through combat zones, believing that the hardest battles were fought overseas. I was wrong. The hardest battle was about to begin in my own bedroom, with my wife of 12 years and whoever owned those boots. Jennifer and I met at a USO dance in 2011. She was volunteering, serving coffee and sandwiches to soldiers heading out on deployment. I was fresh off my second tour in Iraq, carrying too much trauma and not enough hope, when she smiled at me from behind that folding table. "You look like you could use something stronger than coffee," she'd said. "But this is all I've got." Her laugh was like music after months of explosions and gunfire. I asked her to dance right there, in the middle of the volunteer tent, with Toby Keith playing from somebody's radio and the smell of JP8 fuel in the air. She said yes, despite my 2 left feet and the fact that I hadn't danced since high school. We moved awkwardly around other couples, stepping on each other's feet, laughing at how ridiculous we looked. "You're a terrible dancer," she'd whispered. "But you're trying, and that counts for something." That night, spinning slowly in a tent full of soldiers and volunteers, I fell in love with a woman who saw effort as more important than perfection. We married 8 months later at the base chapel. She wore a simple white dress that cost less than my dress uniform, but she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. During the ceremony, she promised to love me through deployments, through the nightmares that woke me screaming, through whatever darkness the military life would bring. I believed every word because her eyes never left mine, even when the chaplain asked if she understood that she was marrying the Army too. Our early years were golden despite the challenges. Afghanistan in 2012, Iraq again in 2014, various training rotations that kept me away for months at a time. But Jennifer managed everything at home with grace and humor. She sent care packages filled with homemade cookies, photos of Tommy learning to walk, videos of him saying "Dada" for the first time. Her letters were novels, detailed accounts of daily life that made me feel connected to home even when I was sleeping in a dusty tent thousands of miles away. When I was home, we'd have these perfect Sunday mornings. Jennifer would make pancakes while Tommy and I built elaborate Lego fortresses on the living room floor. She'd bring us coffee and orange juice, then curl up on the couch in her pajamas, watching us play with that satisfied smile of a woman who had everything she wanted. "My boys," she'd say, and the word "my" carried the weight of absolute belonging. The first crack appeared 6 months ago, subtle as a sniper taking position. Jennifer started working out, joining some new gym across town instead of the base fitness center 5 minutes from our house. "Better equipment," she explained. "More classes." She'd leave at 5 a.m. 3 times a week, coming home energized in ways I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. Her body changed, leaner, stronger, more confident. She bought new workout clothes, expensive brands we couldn't really afford on military pay. "You look amazing," I told her one evening as she modeled a new sports bra that probably cost more than our weekly grocery budget. "I feel amazing," she replied, but she was looking at herself in the mirror, not at me. I forgot what it felt like to be strong. I should have asked what that meant, but I was proud of her transformation. My wife was becoming the best version of herself. How could that be anything but good? The second crack came in her communication patterns. Jennifer had always been a talker, filling every silence with stories about her day, the neighbors, something funny Tommy had done. But conversations became shorter, more functional. "How was work?" I'd ask. "Fine," she'd answer, already reaching for her phone. The detailed stories about her students — she taught third grade at the elementary school on base — dried up like water in desert sand. Her phone became her constant companion, something she guarded like classified intelligence. She'd set it face down during dinner, but I'd see the screen light up with messages she'd quickly dismiss without reading. When I asked who was texting, she'd say, "Work stuff," or "My sister," with the kind of casualness that felt rehearsed. The third crack was physical distance. Jennifer had always been affectionate, hand-holding during movies, casual touches while cooking, the way she'd curl against me in bed like she was trying to absorb my warmth. But she began creating space between us, subtle at first. She'd sit on the opposite end of the couch, claiming she wanted to stretch out. She'd go to bed earlier, saying she was exhausted from her new workout routine. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she'd have headaches, stomach problems, early morning commitments. "I'm just tired, David," she'd say, rolling away from my touch. "This new fitness routine is kicking my ass." But she didn't look tired. She looked energized, glowing, more alive than she'd been in years. Just not for me. I started paying attention with the analytical mind the Army had trained. During my deployment to Syria last year, I'd learned to spot patterns that didn't belong, unusual movements, changes in behavior, things that felt wrong even when they looked right. Now I applied those same skills to my marriage. Jennifer's gym sessions were always on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings. But when I checked our credit card statements, there were charges at coffee shops and restaurants on those same mornings, always after her supposed workout time. When I asked about them, she said she sometimes grabbed breakfast with other gym members. Networking, she called it. Building friendships. I wanted to believe her because the alternative was unthinkable. This was Jennifer, the woman who cried during military homecoming videos, who kept a photo of me in uniform on her desk at school, who told everyone she was proud to be an Army wife. She understood sacrifice, commitment, the importance of keeping faith while your husband serves his country. But the evidence kept accumulating like intelligence reports I couldn't ignore. There were new clothes in her closet, dresses I'd never seen, lingerie still in packages, shoes that cost more than my monthly car payment. When I asked about them, she said she'd gotten a small raise at school and wanted to invest in herself. The phrase felt strange coming from a woman who'd always been practical about money, who'd clip coupons and shop sales to stretch our budget. Her laptop history revealed searches for finding yourself after marriage, rekindling passion, and signs you've outgrown your relationship. She joined online forums for military spouses seeking change and women rediscovering their worth. The browsing history painted a picture of a woman questioning everything about her life, including me. The gym where she worked out was called Iron Temple, and their social media showed a community of fitness enthusiasts who seemed more like a cult than a gym. Photos of group workouts, team challenges, weekend competitions that looked more like parties. Jennifer appeared in several photos, always standing close to the same man, tall, muscled, with the kind of easy confidence that came from never having your life threatened by roadside bombs. His name was Marcus Rivera, according to the gym's website. Head trainer, former college football player, the kind of man who probably never had to choose between his family and his duty. In the photos, Jennifer looked at him the way she used to look at me, like he was the most interesting person in the world. I tried dismissing my suspicions as deployment paranoia, the kind of hypervigilance that makes soldiers see threats everywhere. But the pattern was too clear, too consistent. Jennifer was living a double life, and I was the only one who didn't know it. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago, right before I left for the training exercise at Bragg. Tommy was helping me pack when he asked an innocent question that shattered my world. "Dad, why does Mom's friend Marcus sleep over when you're gone?" I stopped folding uniforms, my hands frozen over olive green fabric. What do you mean, buddy? He comes over for dinner sometimes. Mom makes that fancy chicken she only makes for special occasions. Then he watches movies with us and falls asleep on the couch. But when I wake up in the morning, his car is still here. Tommy was 8 years old, innocent, just sharing information he thought was normal. But his words hit like incoming mortar fire, each detail exploding in my mind. The fancy chicken. The movies. The car's still there in the morning. Has he been coming over a lot? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Every couple weeks, maybe? Mom says he's just a friend from the gym who doesn't have anywhere else to go. She says we should be nice to people who are lonely. Jennifer was teaching our son to cover for her affair, using his natural kindness to normalize her betrayal. She was turning my child into an unwitting accomplice in the destruction of our family. That night, I lay awake next to my wife, watching her sleep peacefully while my world crumbled around me. She looked innocent in the moonlight, her face relaxed and beautiful, the same face I'd fallen in love with at that USO dance. But innocence was an illusion. The woman beside me was living a lie so complete that she'd involved our child in maintaining it. I wanted to wake her up, demand answers, force the truth into the open. But I needed evidence, not just the word of an 8-year-old who didn't understand what he was revealing. So I went to Fort Bragg for 3 weeks of training exercises, carrying the knowledge of my wife's betrayal like a loaded weapon I couldn't discharge. Every day of those 3 weeks was torture. During combat drills, I'd picture Marcus in my house, eating at my table, sleeping in my bed. During weapons training, I'd imagine confronting him, using skills the Army had taught me to protect innocent people against someone who was destroying my family. During night watch, I'd stare at the stars and wonder how long the affair had been going on, whether my marriage had been a lie for months or years. I called home every night, talking to Jennifer with new awareness of every word, every pause, every inflection. She sounded happy, relaxed, more vibrant than she'd been when I was actually there. Our conversations were brief. She always had somewhere to be, something to do, some reason she couldn't talk longer. I miss you, I'd say, testing her response. Miss you too, she'd reply, but it sounded automatic, like a programmed response rather than genuine emotion. On the final night at Bragg, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of coming home Thursday as planned, I'd drive back Tuesday evening, 2 days early. No warning, no phone call, no chance for Jennifer to prepare or hide whatever was happening in my absence. The 6-hour drive from Fort Bragg to our house was the longest of my life. Every mile brought me closer to a truth I dreaded but needed to face. I rehearsed confrontation scenarios, planned conversations, tried to prepare for every possible revelation. But nothing could have prepared me for Tommy's innocent question and those boots under my bed. Standing in my son's room, holding his small body against my uniform, I realized that my 8-year-old had been carrying adult knowledge for weeks. He'd been watching his mother betray his father, confused by behavior that adults around him were pretending was normal. The boots under the bed weren't just evidence of Jennifer's affair. They were proof that she'd brought her lover into our home, into our children's lives, corrupting their understanding of marriage and loyalty. Is he still here? Tommy had asked, and the question contained assumptions that broke my heart. My son expected to find another man in our house because it had become normal, routine, something that happened whenever Daddy was away. I tucked Tommy back into bed, kissing his forehead and promising him everything would be okay, though I had no idea how to make that promise true. Then I walked down the hallway toward my bedroom, where my wife was probably sleeping next to a man who wasn't her husband. The door was closed, but I could hear movement inside, quiet voices, rustling sheets, the sound of people trying not to wake sleeping children. My hand went to the doorknob, then stopped. Opening that door would end everything. 12 years of marriage, the life we'd built, the family I'd thought was worth fighting for. But staying in the hallway, listening to my wife with another man, was killing me by degrees. I'd spent 16 years in the Army, faced enemy fire in 3 different countries, jumped out of planes into hostile territory, made life and death decisions under pressure. But nothing had prepared me for this moment, standing outside my own bedroom, knowing that opening the door would destroy the life I'd been fighting to protect. That night, I knew my war had just begun. I didn't open the door that night. Instead, I walked back to my truck and drove to the 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where insomniacs and shift workers gather to avoid going home to whatever demons wait for them there. I sat in a corner booth until sunrise, drinking black coffee and staring at my phone, wanting to call someone but having no idea what words could explain the crater that had opened up in my chest. The waitress, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and weathered hands, kept refilling my cup without asking questions. Around 4 a.m., she finally spoke. "Son, I've been working this shift for 20 years. I know the look of a man whose world just ended. Whatever it is, sitting here won't fix it, but sometimes sitting here helps you figure out how to fix yourself." She was right. I couldn't fix Jennifer or our marriage or the fact that another man had been sleeping in my bed while I served our country. But I could fix my response to it. I could choose to be a victim or a strategist. The army had trained me for the latter. When I finally went home at 6 a.m., Marcus's truck was gone. Jennifer was in the kitchen making coffee, still in her robe, hair disheveled in ways that told stories I didn't want to hear. She looked surprised to see me but not guilty, not yet. "David, you're home early. I thought you weren't coming back until Thursday." "Change of plans?" I said, studying her face for tells the way I'd study enemy positions. "Wanted to surprise my family." "Well, you certainly did that." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I wasn't expecting you. I would have made your favorite breakfast." "That's okay. I'm not really hungry." What hurts more, war or betrayal? Comment below and subscribe because I'm about to show you the difference between fighting for your country and fighting for your sanity. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in controlled reconnaissance. I became a spy in my own home, gathering intelligence on my wife's double life with the same methodical precision I'd used to map enemy territory. Every conversation became an interrogation, every casual question a probe for information, every moment of apparent normalcy a chance to collect evidence. I started with the basics, documenting Jennifer's schedule, noting discrepancies between where she said she was going and where she actually went. The gym sessions that lasted 4 hours when most workouts take 90 minutes. The grocery trips that resulted in receipts from stores across town instead of the commissary 5 minutes away. The evening, teacher meetings, that happened at restaurants rather than the school. Jennifer's phone became my primary target. She'd grown careless with it around the house, leaving it unattended while she showered or cooked dinner. I installed a spy app during one of her long bathroom breaks, the kind of software I'd learned about during military intelligence training. Within hours, I had access to her texts, call logs, GPS location, and deleted messages. The first thing I discovered was that Marcus Rivera wasn't just a gym trainer, he was a predator who specifically targeted military wives. His text history revealed conversations with at least 3 other women whose husbands were deployed or away for training. He had a system: identify lonely wives, befriend them at the gym, gradually escalate physical and emotional intimacy, then move in for the kill when the husband was away. "Your husband doesn't understand you like I do," he texted Jennifer 2 months ago. "Military guys are all the same, they think providing is the same as loving. You deserve someone who sees how special you are." Jennifer had responded. "David tries, but he's always gone. I feel like I'm married to a ghost sometimes. You make me feel alive again." "That's because you are alive with me. We have something real, something he could never give you." The messages grew progressively more explicit, more detailed, more devastating. They'd been physically intimate for 6 weeks, meeting at his apartment when I was on base, at hotels when his place wasn't available, and eventually at our house when they got bold enough to risk it. But the worst part wasn't the sex, it was the emotional betrayal. Jennifer had shared details of our marriage, our problems, my struggles with PTSD from my deployments. She told Marcus things I'd only shared with her in moments of vulnerability, things she'd promised to keep private. He'd used that information to position himself as everything I wasn't: emotionally available, physically present, unburdened by the psychological weight of military service. "David has nightmares," she texted. He wakes up screaming sometimes. I try to be supportive, but it's exhausting being married to someone who's fighting wars that ended years ago. Marcus had responded. You shouldn't have to live like that. You deserve peace, not chaos. When you're ready to choose happiness over obligation, I'll be here. Reading those messages felt like taking friendly fire. The betrayal hurt worse because it came from someone who was supposed to have my back. Jennifer wasn't just cheating on me. She was using my service-related trauma as justification for her affair, turning my sacrifices for our country into reasons she deserved better. I documented everything, taking screenshots, printing messages, building a case file that would hold up in military and civilian court. Because this wasn't just about a failing marriage anymore, it was about a pattern of predatory behavior targeting military families, and that made it my mission to stop. The GPS data from Jennifer's phone revealed the full scope of their relationship. They'd been to restaurants I'd never heard of, taken weekend trips to beaches I'd promised to take her to someday, visited his apartment complex dozens of times over the past 2 months. But the most damaging revelation was that they'd been together at our house on base, a federal installation where adultery is a prosecutable offense under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Jennifer was a civilian, but Marcus had military connections through the gym's contracts with various bases. If I could prove their relationship had involved military property or personnel, I could destroy both their lives through channels they'd never see coming. My next step was old-fashioned surveillance. I took leave time and followed Jennifer to her supposed gym sessions, watching from parking lots and coffee shops across the street. The pattern was always the same. She'd arrive at Iron Temple, work out for exactly 1 hour, then drive to Marcus's apartment complex. She'd stay for 2 to 3 hours before returning home, usually stopping at a store on the way to buy something small, groceries, household items, anything that would explain her extended absence. On 3 separate occasions, I watched them through his apartment window. They weren't just having sex, they were playing house. Cooking dinner together, watching movies, acting like a couple planning a future together. Jennifer would curl up against him on his couch the same way she used to curl up against me, that unconscious intimacy that comes from feeling completely safe with someone. Seeing that broke something in me that bullets and bombs had never touched. I started confronting Jennifer indirectly, testing her with questions that should have made a guilty person nervous. How was the gym today? I'd ask when she came home after 3 hours at Marcus's apartment. Great! Really pushed myself with the cardio workout. Must have been intense. You look pretty relaxed for someone who just had a tough workout. Oh, you know me. I always feel better after exercise. Endorphins and all that. The lies came so easily, so naturally, that I wondered how long she'd been deceiving me. Had our entire marriage been built on fabrications? Had she ever been faithful, or just better at hiding her affairs in the past? I tested her knowledge of the gym by asking about equipment and classes I knew they didn't offer. She never caught the discrepancies, spinning elaborate stories about workouts and trainers that didn't exist. When I mentioned driving by Iron Temple and not seeing her car, she claimed she'd parked in the back lot because the front was full. Every lie added another layer of evidence to my case file. The breaking point came when I found hotel receipts in Jennifer's purse, 3 different hotels over the past month, all charged to a credit card I didn't recognize. When I ran the card number, it traced back to an account she'd opened secretly, using our joint savings as collateral. She'd stolen money from our family to fund her affair, spending hundreds of dollars on romantic getaways while I was putting my life on the line for our country. That night, I decided to confront her directly. Jennifer, we need to talk. She looked up from her laptop, where she'd been typing what I now knew were messages to Marcus. Sure, honey. What's on your mind? I know about Marcus. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly, too quickly. She'd been preparing for this moment, practicing her response. What about Marcus? He's just a friend from the gym. Friends don't spend 3 hours alone in apartments together. Friends don't take weekend trips to Myrtle Beach. Friends don't steal money from joint savings accounts to pay for hotel rooms. She stood up slowly, calculating her next move. David, you're being paranoid. Your deployment stress is making you see things that aren't there. Am I? Then explain the credit card bills. Explain the hotel receipts. Explain why Tommy thinks Marcus sleeps over when I'm gone. You've been spying on me. Her voice shifted from defensive to accusatory, the classic manipulation tactic of turning the victim into the aggressor. You've been going through my things, following me around like some kind of stalker. That's not healthy, David. What's not healthy is fucking another man while your husband serves his country. She gasped, hand flying to her chest in feigned shock. How dare you speak to me like that? I've been nothing but supportive of your military career, and this is how you repay me? With accusations and vulgarity? Cut the act, Jennifer. I have screenshots of your text messages. I have photos of you going into his apartment. I have financial records showing you've been stealing from our family to pay for your affair. The evidence is overwhelming. She sat back down, deflating slightly as she realized her denials weren't working. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Marcus understands me in ways you don't. He's there for me when you're gone. He listens to me, supports my dreams, makes me feel valued as a person instead of just a military wife. So you decided to sleep with him. It just happened, David. I didn't plan for it to go this far. But you're never here, and when you are here, you're dealing with your own demons from deployments. I felt invisible in my own marriage. Invisible enough to steal money and lie to our son about your boyfriend sleeping in our house. She started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration at being caught, anger at having her carefully constructed double life exposed. I want a divorce, she said suddenly. This marriage isn't working for either of us. We want different things, different lives. Maybe it's time to admit we've grown apart. Grown apart? Jennifer, 6 months ago you were talking about renewing our vows for our 15th anniversary. You were planning our retirement, talking about buying a house near the beach when I finish my 20 years. When exactly did you decide you wanted different things? When I met someone who reminded me what it felt like to be loved instead of just provided for. The words hit like shrapnel, designed to wound and destroy. She was rewriting our history, painting me as a neglectful husband rather than a deployed soldier, making Marcus the hero of a story where I was the villain. You know what, Jennifer? You're right. This marriage isn't working. But you don't get to pretend you're the victim here. You don't get to claim I was a bad husband because I served my country. And you sure as hell don't get to use my PTSD as an excuse for your infidelity. I never said. You told Marcus I was difficult to live with because of my nightmares. You shared private details about my mental health struggles with a man who was actively trying to destroy our marriage. That's not just betrayal, that's cruelty. She looked shocked that I knew the specific content of her messages. How much of my private conversations have you read? All of them. Every text, every email, every deleted message. I know about the other military wives Marcus has targeted. I know about your plan to claim I was emotionally abusive to get better terms in a divorce. I know about the apartment you've been looking at across town. I know everything, Jennifer. She stared at me for a long moment, processing the fact that her secret life was completely exposed. What do you want from me? I want you to be honest about what you've done. Stop pretending this was some innocent friendship that got out of hand. Stop claiming I was a bad husband who drove you into another man's arms. Own your choices. Fine. I'm in love with Marcus. I've been unhappy in this marriage for longer than you know. Military life isn't what I signed up for, and neither are you. I want out. Then get out. But you don't take Tommy, you don't take half our assets, and you don't get to destroy my reputation on your way to happiness with your boyfriend. That's not how divorce works, David. I'm entitled to half of everything, including custody of our son. Not when you've been committing adultery on federal property, using marital funds to support an affair, and involving our minor child in covering up your infidelity. Texas is still a fault-based divorce state, and adultery affects everything from property division to custody arrangements. For the first time since our conversation started, Jennifer looked genuinely afraid. You wouldn't. I already have. I've documented everything. I've consulted with a lawyer. I've prepared evidence that will hold up in both civilian and military court. Your affair with Marcus isn't just a personal betrayal, it's a legal liability. She stood up abruptly, hands shaking. I need air. I can't do this right now. Where are you going? To Marcus's apartment? To plan your next move? To warn him that his pattern of targeting military wives has been exposed? I'm going for a drive. To think. To figure out what happens next. What happens next is simple. You confess to Tommy that you've been lying about Marcus. You move out of this house by the end of the week. You sign divorce papers that give me primary custody and protect my military benefits. And you disappear from my life with whatever dignity you have left. And if I don't? I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but cold determination. Then I destroy you both. I take this evidence to your school principal, to the base commander, to Marcus's other victims. I make sure everyone in our community knows exactly what kind of people you are. I turn your affair into a cautionary tale for other military families. She left without another word, and I heard her car start in the driveway. Through the window, I watched her drive away from the house we bought together, the life we'd built together, the family she'd sacrificed for temporary excitement with a predator who targeted lonely wives. Tommy appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas, looking confused and scared. Dad, why was Mom crying? Why were you both yelling? I knelt down and pulled my son close, breathing in the innocent smell of his hair, feeling the weight of being his only stable parent now. Buddy, Mom and I are having some grown-up problems. Sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love. But no matter what happens between Mom and me, you need to know that both of us love you very much, and none of this is your fault. Is Marcus going to be my new dad? The question hit like a gut punch. My 8-year-old son had been living with this confusion for weeks, watching his mother bring another man into our home, wondering if his family was changing without anyone explaining it to him. No, Tommy. Marcus is never going to be your dad. I'm your dad, and I always will be. That's never going to change, no matter what. He nodded solemnly, the way children do when they're processing information that's too complex for their ears. Are you and Mom getting divorced like Jake's parents? Jake was his best friend from school, another military kid whose family had been destroyed by deployment stress and infidelity. The base was full of broken families, children shuttling between parents who couldn't make their marriages work under the strain of military life. Maybe, buddy. But if we do, it won't change how much we both love you. You'll still have two parents who would do anything for you. I tucked him back into bed and sat in his room until he fell asleep, watching the peaceful rise and fall of his breathing, promising myself that whatever happened next, I'd protect him from the worst of it. I had fought enemies abroad. Now I was preparing for the enemy at home. Continue? The next morning, Jennifer didn't come home. Her car wasn't in the driveway when I woke up, and her side of the bed hadn't been slept in. I made Tommy breakfast, got him ready for school, and drove him to the base elementary school like it was any other day, even though our world had fundamentally changed overnight. Will Mom pick me up today? He asked as I walked him to his classroom. I'm not sure, buddy. I'll be here either way. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed the tension in my voice. Everything okay, Sergeant Thompson? Family issues, I said quietly. Tommy might need some extra support over the next few weeks. She nodded with the understanding of someone who'd seen too many military families implode. Of course. We're here for whatever you need. Jennifer finally came home that evening, looking exhausted and defeated. She'd spent the day at Marcus's apartment, probably planning their next move, trying to figure out how to salvage something from the wreckage of her double life. We need to discuss logistics, she said without preamble. Tommy's schedule, finances, living arrangements. You mean you need to figure out how to minimize the damage to your life? This isn't just about me, David. We have a child to consider. Whatever we do affects him too. You should have thought about that before you brought your boyfriend into his life. You should have considered Tommy before you decided to steal money from his college fund to pay for hotel rooms. You should have thought about our son before you turned him into an unwitting accomplice to your affair." She flinched but didn't deny any of it. "What do you want from me? Would you forgive or destroy? Tell me in the comments and subscribe for tomorrow's story, because what I did next changed 3 lives forever." I pulled out a manila folder thick with documentation, bank statements, hotel receipts, printed text messages, photographs from my surveillance, witness statements from neighbors who'd seen Marcus's truck in our driveway. "I want you to understand the position you're in before you start making demands about custody and property division." She opened the folder and began reading, her face growing paler with each page. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, legally devastating. "Jesus, David. You really did spy on me. I gathered evidence of criminal behavior." "There's a difference." "Criminal behavior? Adultery on federal property is a crime under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Theft of marital assets to fund an extramarital affair is a crime under Texas state law. Involving a minor child and covering up adultery could be considered contributing to the delinquency of a minor. You want to play hardball in divorce court? Let's talk about what happens when I turn this file over to the base commander and the district attorney." She set the folder down with shaking hands. "You'd destroy Tommy's mother over this? You already destroyed Tommy's mother. I'm just documenting what's left." "What do you want?" she asked again, but this time her voice was small, defeated. "I want you to sign an uncontested divorce agreement. I get primary custody of Tommy with you having supervised visitation until you can prove you've ended the relationship with Marcus and undergone counseling for your issues. I keep the house, my military benefits, and our joint savings. You get your car, your personal belongings, and whatever money is left in the account you open to fund your affair. That's not fair. Fair would be you being faithful to your marriage vows while I served our country. Fair would be you not stealing from our family to pay for hotel rooms with your boyfriend. Fair would be you not using our 8-year-old son as cover for your infidelity. We're way past fair, Jennifer." She was quiet for several minutes, processing the reality of her situation. "And if I agree to this? You sign the papers, move out quietly, and start whatever life you want with Marcus. I don't pursue criminal charges, I don't contact your school about your behavior, and I don't share the evidence with other military wives in Marcus's victim network. You'd really do all that? Destroy my career, my reputation, everything? You destroyed our family for a man who targets military wives as a hobby. Yes, I'd do all that and more to protect Tommy from the chaos you've created." She looked around our living room, at the photos of our happy years, the furniture we'd bought together, the life we'd built before she decided she wanted something different. "I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, I file for divorce with the evidence attached, and you deal with whatever consequences come from your choices." That night, Jennifer slept in the guest room. I heard her crying through the thin walls, but I felt nothing except cold determination. The woman I'd married, the one who'd promised to love and honor me through deployment and hardship, was gone. The person in the guest room was a stranger who'd stolen her identity and destroyed her life. The next morning, I took Tommy to school and went to work on base like it was any other day. My squad leader, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, noticed something different in my demeanor. "You good, Thompson? You seem intense today." "Personal shit, Sergeant. Nothing that affects my job performance." "Roger that. But if you need to talk or need time off to handle family stuff, let me know. The Army takes care of its own, and Rodriguez had been through his own deployment divorce. He knew the signs of a soldier dealing with betrayal at home while trying to maintain professional standards at work. I spent my lunch break meeting with Captain Sarah Mitchell, the base's legal assistance officer. She reviewed my evidence and confirmed what I already knew. Jennifer's affair was legally and financially devastating to her position in divorce proceedings. "You have enough here to destroy her in court," Captain Mitchell said. "But are you sure you want to go nuclear? Sometimes the collateral damage affects the children more than the adults. My son has been living with lies for weeks. He's been watching his mother bring another man into our home and being told it's normal. The collateral damage already happened. I'm just trying to limit how much more he has to endure." Understood. I'll prepare the divorce papers according to your specifications. If she doesn't sign them voluntarily, we'll file contested proceedings with all evidence attached. That evening, Jennifer was waiting for me with papers of her own, divorce documents prepared by a civilian attorney, demanding joint custody, spousal support, and half of all marital assets including my military pension. My lawyer says your threats about criminal charges are mostly bluff, she said. Adultery prosecutions are rare, and theft charges would be difficult to prove since I had access to the accounts as your wife. I looked at the papers she'd prepared, then at her face, searching for any sign of the woman I'd married. So this is how you want to play it? I want what I'm entitled to. I gave you 12 years of marriage, moved all over the country for your career, sacrificed my own opportunities to support your military service. I deserve compensation for that. You deserve whatever compensation adultery and theft earn you in Texas family court. Which, according to my lawyer, is absolutely nothing. David, be reasonable. We can work this out without destroying each other. You already destroyed us, Jennifer. I'm just deciding how much of the wreckage you get to keep. I called Captain Mitchell that night and told her to file the contested divorce with all evidence attached. Within hours, the base commander's office had copies, as did Jennifer's school principal, as did 3 other military wives who'd been targeted by Marcus Rivera. The next week was a whirlwind of consequences that Jennifer had never anticipated. Her school placed her on administrative leave pending an investigation into conduct unbecoming of a professional educator. Apparently, having an affair with a man who systematically targeted military families while their husbands were deployed reflected poorly on someone trusted with educating military children. The base commander issued a formal letter banning Marcus Rivera from all military installations, effectively ending his business relationships with military families. 2 other wives came forward with similar stories of being targeted and manipulated by him while their husbands were deployed. Jennifer's family learned the truth when my attorney sent them copies of the evidence as potential witnesses to her character. Her parents, both retired military themselves, were horrified by what their daughter had done to a soldier's family. Most devastatingly, Marcus disappeared. His apartment was empty, his gym contract terminated, his phone disconnected. When confronted with evidence of his pattern of targeting military wives, he'd run rather than face consequences. Jennifer found herself alone, unemployed, and abandoned by the man she'd sacrificed everything to be with. She showed up at my door 3 days later, sobbing and begging for forgiveness. David, I made a terrible mistake. Marcus is gone, my job is gone, my family won't speak to me. I have nothing left. Can't we try to work this out? I looked at the woman who'd been my wife, who'd borne my child, who'd once been the center of my world. She was broken, desperate, facing the consequences of choices that had seemed so exciting when they were secret. No, Jennifer. You don't get to come back when your fantasy falls apart. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't enough. Live with it. But Tommy needs his mother. Tommy needs a mother who doesn't lie to him, steal from him, or use him as cover for adultery. Until you become that person, he's better off with me. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Jennifer signed the papers without contest, having no legal or financial resources left to fight. She moved in with her sister in another state, starting over with nothing but the clothes in her suitcase and the bitter knowledge that she traded a loving family for a man who never intended to stay. Tommy adjusted better than I'd expected. Children are resilient, and once the lies stopped and honesty began, he seemed relieved to know what was real in his life. We went to counseling together, and slowly he began to understand that his parents' divorce wasn't his fault, that love doesn't always last forever, but that his dad would always be there for him. Do you miss Mom? He asked one evening as we worked on homework together. I miss the mom she used to be, I answered honestly. But not the person she became. Me too, he said quietly. The mom who used to read me bedtime stories was different from the mom who had Marcus over for dinner. 6 months later, I received a promotion to first sergeant and orders to transfer to Fort Campbell in Kentucky. It was a chance for Tommy and me to start fresh, away from the base where everyone knew our story, away from the memories of a marriage that had ended in betrayal and destruction. On our last night in the house where I discovered Jennifer's affair, Tommy and I sat on the front porch looking at the stars. He was reading a book about space exploration, dreaming of becoming an astronaut someday. "Dad, do you think you'll ever get married again?" "Maybe someday, buddy. If I find someone who understands what it means to be part of a military family. Someone who keeps promises even when it's hard. Someone who won't lie about having boyfriends. Someone who won't lie about anything." He nodded sagely, then went back to his book about distant planets and brave explorers. I watched him read in the porch light, this amazing kid who'd inherited my curiosity and his mother's intelligence, who'd survived the destruction of his family with grace and resilience. Jennifer had destroyed our marriage, stolen our money, corrupted our home, and abandoned our son for a man who never loved her. She'd lost everything, her family, her career, her reputation, her self-respect, for a fantasy that lasted exactly as long as it took for reality to intrude. But she hadn't destroyed us. Tommy and I were stronger together than we'd ever been apart. We were a team now, a unit, two people who'd survived betrayal and come out the other side with our integrity intact. 3 years later, I'm happily remarried to a fellow soldier who understands deployment, sacrifice, and the importance of keeping faith with the people you love. Lisa is everything Jennifer wasn't: honest, loyal, committed to our family rather than to her own selfish desires. She and Tommy adore each other, and our home is filled with the laughter and stability that had been missing during the final years of my first marriage. Jennifer sends birthday cards and Christmas presents, always with notes about how sorry she is, how much she misses us, how she's learned from her mistakes. I let Tommy read them if he wants to, but I don't respond. She made her choices, and we made ours. Some nights, I think about that moment in Tommy's bedroom when he asked if Marcus was still there, when those innocent words revealed a betrayal I'd been too trusting to see. That 8-year-old boy had been carrying adult knowledge, watching his mother destroy his family, confused by behavior that the adults around him were pretending was normal. Today, Tommy is 11 years old, honor roll student, star of his little league team, and the most honest person I know. He tells me everything now because he's learned the difference between secrets that protect people and lies that hurt them. The war I'd fought overseas was against enemies who wore different uniforms and spoke different languages. The war I'd fought at home was against someone who'd shared my bed, my dreams, my most vulnerable moments. I'd survived both wars, but the one at home had taught me harder lessons about trust, betrayal, and the price of loving someone who doesn't love you back. Jennifer had chosen temporary excitement over lasting commitment, selfish pleasure over family loyalty, lies over truth. She'd lost everything worth having for a man who never intended to stay. I'd chosen my son over my anger, our future over my past, building up over tearing down. We'd won the only war that mattered, the battle for our souls, our integrity, our ability to love and trust again. That victory was worth more than any medal the army had ever given me.